Ladies and gentlemen, it is 2022.
Yes.
Welcome to the first show of the year on Timcast IRL. And this is an election year. It is a main election year. 2020 was the biggest election year. 2019 was the primary season. 2018 was the midterms. 2021 is when everyone is just zoned out. They are beaten down and tired. 2022, the House, the Senate, they're at stake. And there are predictions from many pollsters, many analysts of a red tsunami. Now, it's not just that people are sick and tired of Democrats, that independent voters are favoring Republicans in the double digits. It's that gerrymandering also just happened. Redistricting happened. And now there's an expectation that all of these Republican-controlled states, because people were voting in their local elections, have set it up so that Republicans are more likely to win. Combined with the fact that we have a massive number of Democrats retiring. Fox News reports surge in House Democratic 2022 retirement announcements as 2021 comes to a close. They say a trio of Democrats in the House, Reps Stephanie Murphy of Florida, Lucille Roybal Allard of California, and Albio Sires of New Jersey, last week said they'll retire at the end of next year rather than run in the 2022 midterm elections for another term in Congress. The latest news brought to 23 the number of House Democrats who are retiring or bidding for another office. We just got news that I think, who was it? Bobby Rush?
Was the name?
Mm-hmm. Is also not going to be seeking re-election. There's actually an announcement from a bunch of Democrats who had lost in 2018, who were going to try and run again, also now announcing they're not even going to bother trying to run, even though they aren't in office. Something is happening. I think the Democrats see the writing on the wall. Nobody wants to be that losing candidate. So they're like, what's the point? If you can't win, do something else. A bunch of these Democrats are running for other offices, in the state, governorships or whatever. Many are just bowing out. I don't know, man. Red wave? What do you think?
It seems like if the election were held, next week, that would be the case, right? The question, I think, is can the Democrats instill some confidence on issues like what's happening in the economy, what's happening with COVID? I think Biden's mandate was basically normalcy, right? Can he create a normal political, social, and economic environment? And I think part of that is like getting past the pandemic. Part of that is getting past COVID-19. And I think there's people within his political party that really don't want to do that. They're not ready for that. I think they've inculcated a certain mindset among a lot of the Democrats on COVID-19 that it's just very hard to overcome, even though there are signs that I think the Biden administration is pushing in that direction.
I don't think they're going to be able. Look, I hate to say I know what's going to happen. I don't. Based on everything we've seen with the polls, I think it's fairly likely the Democrats, they know what's happening. The writing's on the wall. But I want to show you. You mentioned Joe Biden. I want to show you this meme that's been going around. I did not make this.
Yep.
It says 2020, Biden-Harris. Every single COVID death is someone Donald Trump murdered. 2021, Joe Biden eating an ice cream cone. There's nothing I can do, Jack. That's where we're at. Joe Biden, the Democrat. Look, I think the Democrats voters, they voted for Biden because they hate Trump. Without Trump, they have no identity. That was their whole rallying cry was Orange Man bad, and now there's nothing. Going into the midterms, you've got parents who are livid. You've got an economy in shambles. You've got Joe Biden saying there's nothing we can do at the federal level. Well, I'll tell you this. You vote in the primaries and get rid of all of the establishment Republicans, bring in some populists who believe in America. They'll bring your jobs back. They'll secure your borders. They'll make sure the country's economy is getting back on track. I don't necessarily have anything to say about an individual candidate. But I'll tell you, the Democrats ain't going to do it. They have become the party of big business, massive corporate wealth. You take a look at people like Hassan Piker, who is one of the most prominent voices among progressives, and he supports the government mandating you be administered a private product from a massive multinational, unaccountable corporation with no liability protections. And I don't care what the dude says he claims about, I don't care what his claims are about supporting universal health care and nationalization of big pharma. It's like, dude, you're sitting here right now telling us that you want the government to be able to mandate a private product to be administered to people if they want to engage in public accommodations, if they want to be able to use these things. I'm sorry, this is what the modern left is. This is, he's one of the, if not the biggest political commentator on the left. And that's what young leftists follow. Support for that kind of system. Not always, not everybody who watches likes him. I get that. But that to me is insane. I can sit here all day and say that a lot of Trump supporters are in a cult and worship the ground Trump walks on. I can say that Donald Trump he represents the worst of American culture, in my opinion. I can say he had a lot of really good policies. And as much as a lot of people didn't like him for who he was actually bringing factories back. He was trying to secure America's borders and bolster our economy. So people, whether they liked him or not, they voted for him. There's certainly a lot of people who love him. We're not getting that from the establishment. The Democrats are offering us nothing other than Trump is bad. And people, they're like, I don't know anything about that at that point. Trump's not the president. The economy is in shambles. My life is not going well. I'm tired of the lockdowns. They just brought back mask mandates down the street because we're on the border of the county. And it makes literally no sense. And I'm like, these people need to be stripped of all power. They are completely insane. And that is the Democratic Party and the Republican establishment.
So one of the things I noticed, one of the things I think the Democrats really should have done, and then I have a question for you, is they should have run on getting rid of Trump, because that's a pretty strong platform. And then the first thing they should have done is turned and said, we have to have issues that we're fighting for, not just stuff that we're fighting against, because that's not a winning strategy in the long term. They had to have known this. I just don't think they were thinking anywhere near far enough past stage one. And then for you, in your meme here, you use the term mass formation psychosis. And I haven't really been able to get into this, but I keep seeing it. Can you unpack that for us?
Well, I just use that phrase in reference to it's a cult. It's a cult that's formed.
Oh, okay.
I've long said that they're a chaotic and destructive force, the left. I don't like the idea of, I've actually been critical of those. It's critical race theory over and over again, because what's happening on the left isn't just critical race theory. That's why I like to say wokeness or something. Right. It is, all of these things are just an amalgam of contrarian, I hate the other, that's our identity. It's really funny. You look at Reddit, you look at the comments, and they'll say, all the Trump cult, they just hate the other side. And it's like, who are you listening to? Who are you watching? Because if you watch, Steven Crowder, one of the most prominent, independent, conservative voices, he's actually making arguments.
Right.
He doesn't just hate you. In fact, he tries to debate you, to bring you on and convince you of these things.
Mind.
Who are they actually listening to? Oh, CNN, Brian Stelter, Jake Tapper, Cuomo, well, he's gone. Things like that. Mass formation psychosis, in my view, I'm just referencing all of these people. Their world was getting crazy. Social media was crazy. They latched on to this narrative that Trump was the cause of all of it. And you were mentioning something earlier that Michael Malice said. They thought Donald Trump was the river when he was actually the dam.
Yeah, I messaged you. I said that one of the most insightful things that I think I've ever heard a modern political commentator say is something Michael Malice said, and that was they thought that Trump was the river. Wait, what was it he said?
They thought Trump was the river, but he was actually the dam.
Yes, so that means that he was kind of holding back this huge wave of populism. He was really just the tip of the iceberg, which is something that they weren't counting on. And now I think they're seeing the other side of that.
When Donald Trump goes on stage with Bill O'Reilly and he gets booed by his audience, it's not a cult.
Right.
It is angry people. They are America First individuals. They are fed up with all of this. I think the Democrats know all of this. All right, Hot Shots pop quiz. Name a Democrat who could win a presidential election who's relative, right now. Name somebody.
I've been thinking about that. Oprah.
Yeah, Oprah.
Michelle Obama.
Yeah, Michelle Obama.
Michelle Obama, Oprah.
Actively right now in politics.
Right now in politics.
Who's a prominent? Oh, sure.
Trump was never in politics either, right?
Trump was planning on running.
He ran a number of times. He lost before. Yeah.
I'll be the first to say I've stated before. I think Michelle Obama could win. I don't think she can win at this point. I do not think so.
Really?
But obviously Michelle Obama, because if you take a celebrity and put them in a position, they might get the votes. But I mean who among Democrats right now? I mean, Oprah's a TV show host.
They don't have a bench, right?
Right now,
they have not developed it because their leadership is so old. Mm-hmm. They have a young generation, but those young generation are way too young, right? Like people in their early 30s are not going to be running for president, right? So they don't have that middle layer of people of kind of like statesmen and stateswomen who could just jump into the presidential spot. And typically in this scenario, you'd line up the vice president, but nobody likes the vice president.
Yep.
She's even more unpopular than Joe Biden is, right? And
actually, I think that flipped recently.
Oh, did it? Okay.
Yeah,
well,
yeah. I think his approval dropped below hers. It's so bad.
Gosh.
And that's really
that's
bad.
That's even worse. Oh my gosh.
Yep. So I think come in 2022, the Democrats have awakened to the reality. Without Trump, they have nothing.
Well, look,
and the right doesn't need Trump.
I live in Virginia, and I did some reporting on the election. And at one point, I got a mailer from the Democratic Party of Virginia about Glenn Youngkin, the Republican candidate. and it was full of Trump quotes about Glenn Youngkin. It was just talking about how Trump has endorsed Youngkin, how much he likes Youngkin. Didn't say anything about the Democratic candidate. Didn't really say anything about Youngkin himself. Just talked about Trump. McAuliffe, the Democratic candidate for governor who lost, kept talking about Trump. Every other line out of his mouth was Trump, 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 Trump. That's their motivating factor, right? They, it's the dog running after the car. They caught the car. Trump's gone. Trump is gone. But that's still their campaigns. That's still their focus is Trump. And the problem is that might work for the hardcore Democratic faithful, but a lot of those people in between, the Hispanics, the Wall Street Journal had a really good article about how Hispanics are now like split between the parties. We had Rui Tejera on our podcast on InquireMore.com, who's one of the emerging Democratic majority author whose thesis has been badly misinterpreted. He was saying it's not true that just because America is going to have many more minorities, the Democrats are automatically going to win, because Hispanics care about issues like basic bread and butter issues, and they don't want to defund police. They don't want kind of a radical social agenda. These are very middle of the road type voters, and I think these middle of the road type voters, just being against one person for the rest of their life, Donald Trump, is not a motivation to vote, right? Getting things basically working in their lives is the motivation to vote, and the Democrats really aren't doing that when there's a permanent COVID emergency that they just can't overcome, right?
And they have to either admit it's what they're doing doesn't work and that they've wasted your time, or that it's over and they lose that emergency, power, that fear factor. I'll tell you what I care about. For one, the economy is trash. Inflation is through the roof, and we need to get this country working again. The current policies are a disaster. But I also want to mention the insanity of it all. So this past weekend, I was with my girlfriend. We went to go eat sushi. We walk into this restaurant, which is, I kid you not, the restaurant was probably about as big as two of this studio room. So that's like, 15 by 35. The restaurant was probably like 15 by 50 or something. There was a table about 10 feet away from where we were standing. We walk up the stairs and there's a waiter, and he's wearing a mask, and he sees us and he goes, "Do you have masks?" And we were like, "No, we don't have any." Like, there's the mask mandate literally came back the day before.
Yeah.
It was at 5 p.m. on December 31st. So we're there on New Year's Day or whatever. We're just going to grab some sushi. I'm like, "No, we don't have any." And he's like, "Well, you need to wear them." And then I look around and I see 20 people sitting down, and I'm like, nobody's wearing a mask. Like, they're all sitting here, and they were like, "Well, they're sitting down." And I was like, "All right, can we just sit down?" Like, there's a table literally 10 feet in front of us. And he was like, "Yes, but you have to have a mask." And I was like, "But no one is wearing one." Like, they're all talking, they're all laughing, they're all eating, and they're not wearing masks. But I was like, "Okay, no, I get it. We'll sit down." And he says, "Fine, but if you get up, you have to have a mask." So he hands us masks. I say, "Okay, no problem. I don't care." And then he's grabbing the menus to take the 2 seconds to walk us to our seat, when all of a sudden, behind the counter on my right, I hear someone yell, "Put the mask on."
Wow.
And then I was like, "We're going to sit down." Like, "No, you have to wear it."
What?
And then I was like, "But I can take it off when I sit down." They're like, "Yes." And I went, "Are you serious?" And they all the staff go, "Yes." And I was like, "Dude, I am out of here, man." Like, there is a certain degree to where when all this started, they said mask mandates. I'm like, I get it, man. Masks stop you from spitting on people. They don't stop the aerosolized virus, to my understanding, but spitting on people can also transmit. So that I get. That makes sense to me. But when you're in a restaurant and they're like, "Take this disposable mask you're going to throw away in 30 seconds. We don't actually expect you to wear it while you're here, but you have to pretend to be doing something for some reason." I'm like, dude, why are you doing this? This is going beyond insane. And that is something that Frederick County and there's a couple counties in Maryland are doing. New York has vax or mask as a statewide policy now. And I'm like, look, if you want to go to a record store, I understand that argument. But if you don't have logic behind your policies, then you are cowards. You are insane, and this doesn't make any sense. So I'll tell you this. If the Democrats are going to keep running on ridiculous, and not to mention polluting policies that are just insane. We're environmentalists. We don't like global warming, but take this piece of trash you're going to throw away and not actually wear. Like, they handed me garbage. They literally handed me garbage to sit down and throw in the trash.
Yep.
That was it, for no other reason.
Yep.
So you know what we did? We got in the car. We drove only a few minutes because it's a border county. And then there we were eating sushi with no mask. Like, what is wrong with these people, man? That's what I'm sick of. I'm sick of the Democrats like AOC. She's in New York and she says, Kathy Hochul, maybe she could give Ron DeSantis some tips. Oh, is that true? AOC, you flew down to Miami to party with no mask on while saying that ending the mask mandate in Texas was going to get people killed. And then you think Ron DeSantis needs tips? Yo, you're going down. You don't believe in your own policies, but the cult members in your state don't read, they don't pay attention, and they vote for people like you. I'm sick of it, man. Vote them all out. But I'll tell you this, if you don't vote in the primaries, you will get a bunch of neocon crackpots who the first thing they do is they go, now that we've been elected, we're going to stand by the mandate of the American people and reinvade Afghanistan. And great, that's exactly what the people want.
But Tim, just really quickly, you don't get it. The masks worked so well the first time. The COVID policies worked so well the first time that we just have to do them again. Okay?
You know what I was thinking? Maybe it's because we only wore 2 masks. Maybe we should wear 4.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Well, I think you brought up a good point, though, in that the Republicans could fall into the same trap now, which is that they could see that the Democratic governance is unpopular. They could see the economic and public health emergency is kind of unpopular. They could ride that wave into power, and then they could just do nothing, right? I mean, that's kind of what they did in 2018 with healthcare, right? They didn't have a healthcare strategy for the Affordable Care Act. They were the dog running after the car. They were saying repeal Obamacare. Said that for basically 8 years. Once they got in a position to do something about healthcare, they didn't have any ideas. They basically said it's too complicated, and they couldn't agree on anything, right? The question is, are they actually going to have a governing agenda, or we're going to end up right back in the same place with parties trading places and not actually being able to resolve some of these things and move forward?
Yeah, I have absolutely no hope in the Republicans. To me, they're going to be absolutely lame ducks. They're going to be sitting on their hands, and they're going to allow a lot of these egregious behaviors to happen, just like they did from the very beginning of this. So to expect them to do something different is absolutely naive. Big tech monopoly lobbying has a hold of a lot of the big conservative base. They're absolutely futile to actually challenge the establishment, and the few ones that do, they're the ones that get hit. They're the ones that get slandered. They're the ones that get
booted from their committees.
Exactly.
Meanwhile, the progressives just run amok in Congress.
So what's happening right now is also absolutely crazy when we look at the raw numbers, especially with people on Twitter making the case that there's huge numbers of cases in Florida going up and only concentrating on that and ignoring the fact that there's a lot more cases in New York. And New York, of course, represents the state that did the most. What's the correct answer here? It's a very complicated one. It's not an easy one, but I would end by saying you shouldn't have all of your faith, all of your cookies in that Republican basket, because you're going to be let down.
Or just vote in the primaries and make sure you get rid of the establishment. Thanks for checking out this segment from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to watch live, you can check out this channel Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. And don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, and if you want more unfiltered and uncensored content with all of these guests, go to timcast.com and become a member. All of these guests you know and love in exclusive segments on our website where we are unrestricted in what we talk about, so you'll definitely not want to miss it. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you all next time.